The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Tanya Wilson woke up with a smile. Today marked 10 years since she had said I do to Anthony, and she had been planning their anniversary celebration for weeks. She glanced at her husband's empty side of the bed. He had left early for work, giving her the perfect opportunity to put the final touches on her surprise. Tanya stretched and got up, her mind already racing through her to-do list. The guests would arrive at 7, the caterer was coming at 5, and the most important item, the anniversary cake, needed to be picked up by noon. 10 years, she whispered to herself, looking at their wedding photo on the dresser. The young couple in the picture had no idea about the ups and downs that lay ahead, the joy of buying their first home, the heartbreak of 2 miscarriages, and finally, the success of starting their catering business together 3 years ago. In the kitchen, Tanya made herself a quick cup of coffee and pulled out her phone to check her messages. Her sister Denise had texted, "Need help with anything today?" Tanya smiled and typed back, "Yes. Can you come over at 4? Need help with decorations while I finish cooking." She scrolled through her contacts and called Sweet Dreams Bakery. "Hi, this is Tanya Wilson. I'm calling to confirm my cake pickup today." "Let me check," the receptionist said. After a moment, she confirmed, "Yes, Mrs. Wilson. Your anniversary cake is ready for pickup anytime after 11 a.m. "Perfect. Thank you." After finishing her coffee, Tanya headed to the spare bedroom that served as their home office. She opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and pulled out a small gift box containing a vintage watch she had found for Anthony. It had taken months of saving up, especially with how tight money had been lately with their catering business facing increased competition. Their business, Wilson's Home Flavor, had started strong but had struggled in recent months. Anthony had been working extra hours, taking on smaller jobs that barely broke even just to keep clients. Tanya knew the stress was getting to him. He'd been quieter lately, his usual jokes and smiles replaced with worried frowns as he went over their accounts late into the night. "Tonight will help," she thought, wrapping the watch box in silver paper. "We need to remember why we started this journey together." By mid-morning, Tanya had cleaned the house, arranged flowers, and prepared the ingredients for Anthony's favorite appetizers. She glanced at the clock, 11:30 a.m., time to pick up the cake. The bakery was across town, a 40-minute drive in good traffic. Tanya had chosen this particular place because of their reputation for creating stunning custom cakes. She had splurged a bit on this cake, knowing it would be the centerpiece of their celebration. When she arrived, the bakery was busy with the Saturday rush. Tanya waited patiently in line, admiring the colorful pastries and cookies in the display case. When her turn came, she approached the counter with a smile. "Hi, I'm here to pick up a cake for Wilson." The young man behind the counter nodded. "The anniversary cake with the photo, right? Let me get that for you." He disappeared into the back room. While waiting, Tanya checked her bank account on her phone. The business account was lower than she expected. Anthony must have paid some suppliers. Her personal account still had enough for the cake balance, though it would be tight until next week. The employee returned with a large box. "Here you go. Would you like to see it before you take it?" "Yes, please." He carefully opened the box to reveal a beautiful 2-tier cake. The bottom tier was covered in smooth white fondant with delicate silver details, while the top tier featured their wedding photo printed on edible paper, surrounded by sugar flowers in the same colors as her wedding bouquet. "It's perfect," Tanya breathed, feeling emotional at how well they had captured her vision. The employee smiled and closed the box. "Great, so the remaining balance is $175, Tanya blinked. "I'm sorry, I thought it was $125. That's what I was quoted when I placed the order." The employee looked uncomfortable and checked the computer. It shows here that the quote was $250 with a $75 deposit, leaving $175 due at pickup. The extra charges for the photo printing and the sugar flowers, which were added after the initial quote. Tanya vaguely remembered discussing adding those details, but she couldn't recall agreeing to the additional cost. Still, the cake was beautiful, and she didn't want to cause a scene or leave without it. "Let me speak to the manager, please," she said calmly. A few minutes later, a middle-aged woman approached. "Mrs. Wilson? I'm Lisa, the manager. Is there a problem?" Tanya explained the situation, and Lisa checked the order notes. "I see the confusion. It looks like these additions were discussed, but the updated quote wasn't clearly communicated. I apologize for that." Tanya glanced at her watch. It was already 12:30 and she had so much left to do. Look, I can pay the $125 I was expecting today, but I can't do $175 right now. Our business account is a bit tight this week. Lisa considered this. Since this was our error in communication, how about we split the difference? $150 today? Tanya hesitated. Even that would leave her account nearly empty until payday. Would it be possible for me to pay the $125 today and come back next week for the remaining amount? I promise I'll take care of it. Lisa seemed reluctant but eventually nodded. Since you're a first-time customer and this is a special occasion, I'll make an exception. But please come back by Wednesday to settle the remaining $50. Absolutely. Thank you so much for understanding. Tanya paid the $125, carefully took the cake box and headed to her car, relieved but also worried about telling Anthony about the additional cost. On the drive home, she called Denise to update her on the day's progress. The cake is gorgeous, but there was a mix-up with the price. How much more? Denise asked. $50. I'll have to go back and pay it next week. Does Anthony know? Tanya sighed. Not yet. You know how he's been about expenses lately, but it's our 10th anniversary and I wanted it to be special. Just be upfront with him, Tan. Secrets about money never end well. I know. I'll tell him tomorrow after the party. I don't want to spoil tonight. When she arrived home, Tanya carefully carried the cake inside and placed it in the refrigerator. There was still so much to do. Finish the cooking, set the table, and get herself ready before guests arrived. As she chopped vegetables for the appetizers, Tanya's phone rang. It was the bakery. Mrs. Wilson? This is Lisa from Sweet Dreams Bakery. I just wanted to let you know that I've spoken with the owner, and he's insisting that we can't let partial payments become a habit. He's asked me to call you and request that you come back today with the remaining balance. Tanya felt her stomach drop, but we already had an agreement. I can't come back today. I'm hosting the party in a few hours. I understand, but those are his instructions. He suggested that if you can't come in, perhaps we could call to get the payment over the phone. Tanya thought quickly. She couldn't use their nearly empty business credit card, and her personal card was already close to its limit. Can I speak with him directly? He's not in today, I'm afraid. Tanya took a deep breath. Look, I understand you're just doing your job, but I really can't deal with this right now. I promise I'll come in on Monday with the payment. Please tell your boss that I'm a woman of my word. After a brief silence, Lisa reluctantly agreed. All right, Monday it is. But please make sure you come in or I'll be in trouble. I will. Thank you. Tanya hung up, her hands shaking slightly. She hated keeping financial issues from Anthony, but tonight needed to be perfect. They both deserved one night without worrying about money. By 6 o'clock, the house looked beautiful. Tanya had transformed their modest living room with string lights, flowers, and photos from their 10 years together displayed on every surface. The food was prepared, the wine was chilling, and the cake waited in the refrigerator. Tanya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the straps of her new dress. Another expense she probably shouldn't have indulged in, but Anthony's eyes would light up when he saw her in it, and that would be worth every penny. As she applied her lipstick, Tanya heard the front door open. Anthony was home early. She quickly capped the lipstick and went to greet him, hoping the bakery wouldn't call again before she had a chance to explain everything tomorrow. For tonight, all she wanted was to celebrate their love and remember why they had chosen each other, through better or worse 10 years ago. Tanya hurried to the front door, her heart racing with excitement. Anthony stood in the entryway, his tall frame looking more tired than usual. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but they still lit up when he saw her. Wow, he said, taking in her fitted burgundy dress. You look amazing. Tanya did a small twirl. You like it? It's new. A flicker of something, concern maybe, crossed Anthony's face before he smiled. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. He leaned down to kiss her, then noticed the transformed living room behind her. What's all this? Happy anniversary, Tanya said softly, taking his hand. 10 years deserves a proper celebration, don't you think? Anthony squeezed her hand. I thought we agreed to keep it simple this year. Just dinner, the two of us. I know, but Tanya was interrupted by the doorbell. That'll be Denise. She's helping me set up before everyone arrives. Everyone? Anthony's eyebrows shot up. Tanya, how many people did you invite? Before she could answer, Denise walked in using her spare key, carrying a gift bag. Happy anniversary, you two. She hugged them both, then whispered to Tanya, "The cake situation all sorted? We'll talk later," Tanya murmured back. Anthony looked between them. "What cake situation?" "Nothing," Tanya said quickly. "Just a mix-up with the order." "Everything's fine." She turned to her husband. "Why don't you go get changed? People will be here in less than an hour." Anthony hesitated but eventually nodded and headed upstairs, his shoulders tense. As soon as he was out of earshot, Denise grabbed Tanya's arm. "You didn't tell him about the extra money?" "I will tomorrow. Tonight's supposed to be special." Denise shook her head. "This is a bad idea, Tan. You know how he feels about surprises, especially expensive ones. It's $50, not $500, and our anniversary only comes once a year." "Yeah, but you told me last week that you two had agreed to cut back on expenses until the business picks up." Tanya busied herself arranging flowers. "Can we drop it, please? Help me finish setting up." For the next half hour, they worked in silence, hanging the last decorations and arranging food on platters. When Anthony came back downstairs in a blue button-down shirt and slacks, his face was unreadable. "Who's coming tonight?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Tanya listed off their closest friends and a few family members. "Just 15 people total. Small and intimate." Anthony nodded slowly. "And how much did all this cost?" "The food, decorations, your new dress?" Before Tanya could answer, Denise excused herself to the kitchen. "Why are you asking me this now?" Tanya kept her voice low. "Can't we just enjoy our anniversary?" "I'm asking because I spent 2 hours on the phone today with our accountant." "We're barely breaking even this month, Tanya. The Hendersons canceled their event next week. That's $3,000 gone." Tanya felt her stomach drop. "They canceled? Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to tell you over dinner tonight. Our quiet, inexpensive dinner." He gestured around at the decorations. "Not whatever this is." "This is me trying to celebrate us," Tanya said, feeling defensive. 10 years of marriage deserves recognition, Anthony. We can't put our entire lives on hold because of temporary business struggles." The doorbell rang again. "We'll discuss this later," Anthony said, straightening his shoulders and putting on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. For the next hour, guests arrived bearing gifts and well wishes. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Tanya circulated with appetizers, Anthony poured drinks, and everyone commented on how beautiful the house looked. But Tanya could feel the tension radiating from her husband with every fake laugh and forced smile. When most of the guests had arrived, Tanya's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and felt her heart sink. Sweet Dreams Bakery. She declined the call and slipped the phone back into her pocket. 5 minutes later, it rang again. Same number. "Aren't you going to get that?" Anthony asked, suddenly appearing at her side. "It's nothing important. Just spam, probably." The third time her phone rang, Anthony's patience visibly wore thin. Either answer it or turn it off. It's distracting everyone. Reluctantly, Tanya stepped into the hallway and answered. "Hello? Mrs. Wilson, this is Lisa from Sweet Dreams Bakery again. I'm so sorry to bother you, but my boss came in unexpectedly and is insisting that I resolve this payment issue tonight." "I can't deal with this right now," Tanya whispered urgently. "I'm in the middle of my anniversary party." "I understand, but he's threatening to call your husband directly if we can't resolve this. He looked up the business number for Wilson's Home Flavor." Tanya felt panic rise in her chest. "Fine. Can I give you my card number over the phone?" "Yes, that would work." Tanya fumbled with her purse, pulled out her credit card, and read the numbers in a hushed voice. She knew the card was nearly maxed out, but maybe, just maybe, it would go through. After a moment of silence, Lisa spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson, but the card was declined." "That's impossible," Tanya said, even though she knew it wasn't. "Try again." The second attempt failed too. "Do you have another card you could use?" Lisa asked gently. Tanya closed her eyes. "No. Look, I promise I'll come in on Monday with cash. I'm afraid my boss is quite insistent. He's saying that if we can't resolve this now, he'll need to speak with your husband since you both own Wilson's Home Flavor." Before Tanya could respond, she realized Anthony was standing behind her, his expression unreadable. "Who is that?" he asked. Tanya covered the phone. "It's nothing. Business call." Anthony held out his hand. "On our anniversary? Let me handle it." Reluctantly, Tanya handed over the phone. "It's the bakery," she admitted quietly. Anthony put the phone to his ear. "This is Anthony Wilson." He listened for a moment, his jaw tightening. I see, and when was this additional charge discussed? Another pause. I understand. We'll resolve this immediately. He hung up and handed the phone back to Tanya. The hallway suddenly felt very small. You ordered a custom cake with extra features you knew we couldn't afford, and then you tried to hide it from me? His voice was low but intense. It wasn't like that, Tanya protested. There was a misunderstanding about the price. I was going to pay the rest on Monday. With what money, Tanya? Your credit card is maxed out and our business account is nearly empty. Where were you going to get $50 by Monday? I was going to use the cash from my birthday. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? Anthony's voice rose slightly before he caught himself and lowered it again. We agreed to cut back on expenses. We agreed no gifts, no party, just a quiet dinner. Now I find out you've spent money on a new dress, decorations, food for 15 people, and an expensive cake you couldn't even pay for in full. Tanya felt tears threatening but blinked them back. I wanted tonight to be special. You've been so stressed lately. I thought this would help us remember what's important. What's important is keeping our business afloat. What's important is being honest with each other. Anthony ran a hand over his face. We need to get back to our guests. Are you angry? Tanya asked, already knowing the answer. We'll talk about this later, Anthony said, turning back toward the living room. Let's just get through this party you had to have. Back in the living room, the guests had started to notice the tension. Conversations became quieter, glances more concerned. Denise caught Tanya's eye and raised her eyebrows in question. Tanya gave a small shake of her head. For the next hour, they went through the motions, accepting congratulations, opening gifts, making small talk. Anthony remained polite but distant, his smile never reaching his eyes. Each time someone asked how the catering business was going, Tanya could see him tense up before giving a vague, positive response. Finally, it was time for the cake. Tanya went to the kitchen to retrieve it, her hands shaking slightly as she opened the refrigerator. The beautiful two-tier creation looked even more expensive under the harsh kitchen lighting. As she carried it carefully to the dining room, she heard her mother-in-law say to Anthony, "You two are such an inspiration, 10 years and still so in love." Anthony's response was lost as everyone turned to admire the cake Tanya placed on the table. There were appreciative murmurs and several guests took photos with their phones. "This is gorgeous," Anthony's cousin remarked. "It must have cost a fortune." The room fell silent as everyone sensed the sudden tension. "Time to cut the cake," Tanya said brightly, trying to move past the awkward moment. She handed Anthony a knife. Together, Anthony looked at the cake, then at Tanya, his eyes dark with a storm of emotions. The expensive cake with its perfect sugar flowers and custom photo topper now stood as a symbol of everything going wrong in their lives. Financial stress, communication breakdown, broken promises. "Actually," he said, his voice strained, "I think we need to have a word in private first." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Tanya's smile remained frozen on her face, but her eyes pleaded with Anthony. "Not here, not now, not in front of everyone. It's just a quick toast first," she said, trying to salvage the moment. She picked up a champagne glass from the table. "Everyone, thank you so much for coming to celebrate with us tonight." Anthony set the knife down with a sharp clink against the plate. "Tanya, kitchen, now." His voice was quiet but firm. Denise stepped forward. "How about I start pouring champagne for everyone while you two have your moment?" Tanya shot her sister a grateful look before following Anthony to the kitchen. As soon as the door swung shut behind them, he turned to face her. "I can't believe you," he said, keeping his voice low so their guests wouldn't hear. "We agreed. No big expenses until the business stabilizes." "I know, but no, you don't know." Anthony ran his hand over his close-cropped hair. "Do you understand what I've been dealing with? Clients canceling, suppliers raising prices, competitors undercutting us." "Of course I do," Tanya replied. "I work in the business too." "Then why would you do this? A custom cake we can't afford? A party we don't need?" Tanya's eyes flashed. "Because we deserve to celebrate what's good in our lives. We've been married 10 years, Anthony. 10 years. That matters more than any business." "The business is what keeps a roof over our heads," Anthony countered. "It's what pays our bills. And right now we're barely staying afloat. I was going to pay the extra money on Monday. With what? Magic? You're not listening to me, Tanya. We don't have extra money right now. Every dollar matters." Tanya crossed her arms. "So what was your plan for our anniversary?" Pretend it wasn't happening? No, I had reservations at that little Italian place you like. Affordable but nice. Just the two of us like we talked about. He pulled a small box from his pocket. And I got you something small but meaningful. Tanya stared at the box, guilt washing over her. I didn't know. Because you didn't ask. You just decided to do what you wanted without talking to me. Anthony put the box back in his pocket. That's been the problem lately, hasn't it? You make decisions and I find out after the fact. The kitchen door opened slightly and Denise peeked in. Everything okay? People are wondering about the cake. We'll be right out, Tanya said quickly. Denise hesitated. The bakery called again. They want to speak with Anthony. Anthony closed his eyes briefly as if praying for patience. Tell them I'll call back tomorrow. They said it's urgent. Something about a payment being declined again. Tanya's face flushed with embarrassment. I'll handle it. No. Anthony held out his hand. Give me the phone. Denise passed her cell phone to Anthony, who took it and stepped into the corner of the kitchen. Tanya could only hear bits of the conversation. Already discussed this. My wife explained. Business account. When he hung up, his expression was thunderous. They ran your card again without permission. And they called our business line and left messages saying we're refusing to pay. Do you understand what that could do to our reputation? I'm sorry, Tanya whispered. I didn't think. That's right. You didn't think. Anthony's voice rose despite his efforts to control it. You didn't think about our finances. You didn't think about how this would affect our business. You didn't think about what I wanted for our anniversary. From the dining room, they could hear concerned murmurs from their guests. We should go back out there, Tanya said. Reaching for Anthony's arm, he pulled away from her touch. And do what? Pretend everything's fine? Cut the cake we can't afford and make a toast to 10 more years of financial irresponsibility. Tears welled in Tanya's eyes. That's not fair. Neither is finding out that my wife has been hiding things from me. Neither is discovering that while I've been working 16-hour days to save our business, you've been maxing out credit cards on parties and dresses and cakes. It's one dress, one party. For our anniversary? Tanya's voice rose to match his. And I wasn't hiding anything. I was going to tell you tomorrow. More secrets. More things you decide I don't need to know until you decide I should know them. Their raised voices had drawn attention. The kitchen door opened wider and several concerned faces peered in. Everything all right in here? Asked Anthony's brother, Kevin. Everything's fine, Tanya said automatically. No, it's not fine. Anthony turned toward their guests. Nothing about this is fine. A hush fell over the group as they sensed the tension. Tanya's mother stepped forward. Maybe we should give you two some space. No need, Anthony said. We're coming out right now to cut the cake. His voice held an edge that made Tanya nervous. Everyone wants to see us cut the cake, right? He walked back to the dining room, where the beautiful anniversary cake still sat in the center of the table. Their guests followed uncertainly, exchanging worried glances. Tanya felt sick as she watched Anthony pick up the knife again. His hand was shaking slightly. Anthony, she said quietly, please don't do this. He ignored her. Everyone gather around for the cake cutting, he announced with a brittle smile. The cake that cost more than our utility bill this month. The cake that my wife ordered even though we agreed not to spend money on extras. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Tanya's cheeks burned with humiliation. Anthony, this isn't the time, she pleaded. When is the time, Tanya? When the business goes under? When we lose the house? He gestured at the cake. Look at this thing. Custom photo, fancy decorations. All so we can what, impress people? Pretend we're doing better than we are? Tanya's mother stepped forward. Anthony, why don't we all take a break? No, I think everyone should know. Anthony's voice was getting louder. Everyone should know that while I've been killing myself to keep our business alive, my wife has been spending money we don't have on things we don't need. Stop it, Tanya hissed. You're embarrassing both of us. I'm embarrassing us? What about you hiding bills? What about you maxing out credit cards? Anthony's control was slipping further. What about you lying to my face about how much things cost? I never lied, Tanya protested. There was a misunderstanding about the price. I was going to fix it. Like you fixed the catering supply bill last month? Or the new kitchen equipment we absolutely needed that's now sitting unused because we can't afford to hire staff to use it? Tanya felt tears streaming down her face now. That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's you making decisions without me, spending money without discussing it, hiding things until I find out on my own. The room was painfully silent as everyone watched their marriage unraveling before their eyes. Some guests were looking at the floor. Others were inching toward the door. "I think we should go," Denise said, trying to guide the other guests toward the exit. But Anthony wasn't finished. He picked up the cake knife and stabbed it into the top tier of the cake. "You want to cut the cake so badly? Fine. Let's cut the cake." He sliced roughly through the beautiful creation. "Let's all enjoy this $200 cake that we can't afford." "Anthony, please," Tanya begged. "Stop this." He looked directly at her, his eyes full of hurt and anger. "You know what? You deal with it. You ordered it. You figure out how to pay for it." With that, he shoved the cake stand toward her. The cake slid off the stand across the table and partially onto Tanya's burgundy dress before tumbling to the floor in a mess of frosting, fondant, and crumbled cake. Tanya gasped as the cold frosting hit her chest and slid down the front of her new dress. White icing and cake crumbs covered her from chest to knees. The room froze in collective shock. No one moved. No one spoke. Anthony himself looked stunned at what he'd just done, as if he couldn't believe his own actions. The anger drained from his face, replaced by horror. "Tanya, I didn't mean to." Everyone watched Tanya, waiting for her reaction. Would she scream? Would she throw something back? Would she tell him to get out? The beautiful dark skin of her face was streaked with tears. Cake crumbs stuck to her cheeks. She looked down at the ruined dress, at the mess on the floor, at the stunned faces of their friends and family. Time seemed suspended as everyone held their breath, waiting for the explosion that would surely follow such a public humiliation. Tanya took a deep, shaky breath. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly steady. "Everyone," she said quietly, "I think the party is over. Thank you all for coming." Denise rushed to her side. "Tan, are you okay? Do you want me to stay?" Tanya shook her head. "No, I need to talk to my husband. Alone." The guests began collecting their belongings in awkward silence, murmuring quiet goodbyes and avoiding eye contact. Within minutes, the house had emptied, leaving only Tanya and Anthony standing among the party debris and ruined cake. Anthony stared at his wife, cake still dripping from her dress onto the floor. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I don't know what came over me." Tanya's expression was unreadable as she wiped frosting from her arm. "You and I," she said calmly, "need to have a conversation." The front door closed behind the last guest, leaving Tanya and Anthony alone in the wreckage of their anniversary party. Cake frosting dripped from Tanya's dress onto the hardwood floor. The beautiful decorations that had taken hours to arrange now seemed hollow and meaningless. Anthony stood frozen, his face a mask of regret. "Tanya, She held up a hand to stop him. "Not here." Her voice was surprisingly steady despite the tears still wet on her cheeks. "I'm going to change. Clean this up while I'm gone." Without waiting for his response, Tanya walked upstairs, each step leaving a small frosting footprint on the carpet. In their bedroom, she peeled off the ruined dress and stared at it for a long moment. Just that morning, she had admired herself in the mirror, imagining Anthony's face when he saw her in it. Now it was destroyed, just like their special night. In the bathroom, she washed the cake from her skin, watching white frosting swirl down the drain. She could hear Anthony moving around downstairs, probably sweeping up the broken pieces of cake and plate. Part of her wanted to scream, to throw something to match his outburst with one of her own. It would be so easy to let anger take over. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, something shifted inside her. Beyond the humiliation and hurt, she saw something else, a chance to break their pattern. For months, they'd been caught in a cycle of tension, blame, and distance. Each argument led to another. Each disagreement widened the gap between them. Tanya slipped into comfortable clothes, an old t-shirt and sweatpants, and took a deep breath. This wasn't how she had imagined spending their 10th anniversary, but maybe it was what they needed. Maybe they needed everything to fall apart before they could rebuild. Downstairs, Anthony had cleared away most of the mess. The cake was gone, the floor wiped clean. He was sitting at the dining room table, head in his hands. He looked up when she entered, his eyes red and swollen. "Tanya, I am so sorry." His voice broke. "I don't know what happened. I lost control. I've never done anything like that before." Tanya pulled out a chair and sat across from him, maintaining enough distance to think clearly. I know you haven't, that's why it shocked me so much. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted me to leave, Anthony said quietly. What I did was inexcusable. Yes, it was, Tanya agreed, her voice firm but not angry. Throwing that cake at me, humiliating me in front of our friends and family, that crossed a line, Anthony. A serious line. He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. But, she continued, walking away right now would be the easy choice, and easy choices rarely lead to growth. Anthony looked up, surprise flickering across his face. I'm not saying what you did was okay, Tanya clarified. It wasn't. But I think what happened tonight wasn't really about a cake or even about money. It was about everything that's been building between us for months. I should have talked to you, Anthony admitted, instead of letting the pressure build up inside me. And I should have respected our agreement about finances, Tanya acknowledged. We both made mistakes. Anthony reached across the table for her hand, but Tanya kept hers in her lap. I'm not ready for that yet, she said gently. I need you to listen first. Anthony nodded and pulled his hand back. Do you know what hurt the most tonight? Tanya asked. It wasn't the cake on my dress or even the embarrassment in front of everyone. It was realizing how far apart we've grown. We used to be a team, Anthony. We used to face challenges together, but lately it feels like we're on opposite sides. I've felt it too, Anthony admitted. I've been so focused on saving the business that I stopped seeing us, you and me, as the most important thing to save. Tanya nodded. And I've been trying to create moments of joy and normalcy without acknowledging how serious our situation is. We've both been coping in our own ways, but we haven't been coping together. For the first time that evening, the tension between them began to ease. Not because the problems had disappeared, but because they were finally naming them. You know, Tanya said, her voice softening. When that cake hit me, I had a split second where I wanted to grab what was left and throw it right back at you. The corner of Anthony's mouth twitched despite himself. I would have deserved that. Yes, you would have, she agreed. But then I thought about what would happen next. More yelling, more blame, more distance between us. And I realized something important. What's that? Anthony asked. I realized that how I responded in that moment would either break us further apart or give us a chance to heal. And despite everything, Anthony, I still choose healing. I still choose us, Anthony's eyes filled with tears. Why? After what I did, how can you still want to work things out? Tanya was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Because 10 years ago, I promised to love you for better or worse. We've had a lot of better. This might be our worst, but that doesn't mean we throw everything away. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark night. That doesn't mean what you did was acceptable. It wasn't. And we need to address that. I know, Anthony said. I've never done anything like that before, but that's not an excuse. I lost control and I hurt and humiliated the person I love most in this world. I need to get help with managing my anger and stress. Tanya turned back to face him. Yes, you do. And I need to be more honest about our finances and respect the boundaries we set together. Where do we go from here? Anthony asked. Tanya took a deep breath. First, we need to really talk. About the business, about our money problems, about how we've been feeling. No more hiding things from each other. Anthony nodded. I'd like that. And I think I should talk to someone. A therapist or counselor. The way I reacted tonight scared me. I don't want to be that person. I think that's a good idea, Tanya said. Maybe we could do some sessions together too. Learn how to communicate better. I'd like that, Anthony said. He hesitated, then asked, Can I show you something? When Tanya nodded, he pulled the small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside wasn't an expensive piece of jewelry as she might have expected, but a simple wooden charm on a leather cord. The wood was carved into the shape of a small tree. I made this, he explained, from that branch that fell in the backyard of our first apartment, remember? The one we said was a sign we should plant roots there. Tanya's hand went to her heart. You kept that all these years? Anthony nodded. I've been taking a whittling class at the community center. It's been helping me manage stress. This was my first real project. He looked down at the small charm. It's not fancy, but it's us. Our roots. Something that matters more than fancy cakes or big parties. Tanya felt tears spring to her eyes again, but different tears this time. It's beautiful, she whispered. I was going to give it to you over dinner, just the two of us, Anthony said. I wanted to remind you that no matter how tough things get with the business, what matters most is what we've built together. Tanya walked over and sat beside him. Slowly, she reached out and took the necklace from the box. Will you put it on me? Anthony's hands trembled slightly as he fastened the clasp behind her neck. The wooden charm rested against her collarbone, simple but meaningful. I'm still angry, Tanya said honestly. What you did tonight hurt me deeply. Trust has been broken and it's going to take time to rebuild it. I understand, Anthony said. I'll do whatever it takes for however long it takes. Tanya touched the wooden charm. But I'm also reminded of why I fell in love with you. Not because you're perfect, clearly you're not. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. But because when it matters most, you see me. The real me. Not just the business partner or the wife, but Tanya. And you see me, Anthony replied. Even when I'm at my worst, you see the man I'm trying to be. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the evening heavy between them, but something new emerging too, a fragile bridge beginning to form across the chasm that had opened in their relationship. I can't promise we won't face more hard times, Tanya said finally. With the business, with money, with each other. But I can promise to face them with you, not against you. Anthony looked at her, his eyes full of regret but also hope. That's all I want. A chance to do better, to be better, together. Tanya reached across the table and took his hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, that would take time. It wasn't a magical fixing of all their problems. But it was a choice to walk toward healing rather than further hurt. Happy anniversary, she said softly. Not the one we planned, but maybe the one we needed. Outside, the last of their guests' cars pulled away from the curb. The house was quiet now. The decorations that had seemed so important hours ago now just paper and string. The cake was gone, but something more substantial remained. The core of a marriage that had weathered its first real storm and, somehow, found a way to keep standing.